Gentlemen.
Hey guys, what's going on? Nerdy Gentleman here, and gonna try something a bit different and talk about some different things that are popping up on Spectrum. I saw this post um, from Salty Mike, and I thought it should be something that goes in a bit further on there. So, how you guys doing today? Hope you guys are doing well. I am doing well myself. Thank you so much for asking. I appreciate you being here. Let's move some stuff around. The post comes through, and it's from Max Jurgens on Spectrum. I don't want any hate to go through on this this person who posted this at all. It's just one of those things that I thought was a bit extreme in how it, I don't know, approached this side of it. And I don't think that the person is being a troll. I think this is actually how they do feel about this post. If you haven't seen this yet, this did pop up on the Spectrum for mole owners deserve a punishment nerf. Right, so if you are unaware, a few days ago, or a week ago now, I guess, they came through and announced out that they were going to be doing some changes and doing some nerfs to prospectors to make it to where there's going to be a multitude of changes that happen, but they want the moles to actually have a form and function. And the way they did it is a bit weird. One of the things they did was because prospectors are multiple ships, they're going to get an instability nerf, I guess, or an instability increase whenever multiple prospectors are going to be going for the same rock, whereas a mole gets an instability decrease because they're all operating within the same computer system. So I mean, it kind of makes sense logic wise. Like, it's easier for the system on the mole to go through and sync up its lasers to make sure that it reduces the instability as opposed to three different prospectors. But it's one of those things. They just basically want to go through and have different rocks available to be mined by different ships, and kind of like each ship do well on their own, basically. But Max Jurgens wrote up a post, and really, I didn't want to just go through the base post of it. I'm going to read through this, but really go through for the replies and kind of see these different mindsets that are done in here. So Max Jurgens writes, "Since the prospector has had just about everything in the game taken away from it, the prospector should get a makeup nerf and let the ship discard inert materials so that it gets to keep 100% of what it mines," which right off the bat sounds absolutely ridiculous. No, that's like, yeah, just to make sure that it gets to keep 100% of what it mines and gets rid of inert materials altogether. No, I do see them in the future going through and releasing maybe AI cubes or AI computers that you'll be able to go through in there to be able to do stuff. Right now, they do have different heads to where you can make it to where you can get reduced amount of inert materials on there, but I don't see that happening as a change. The mole owners like to see other people's gameplay destroyed, so they should have no problem with a punishment nerf for the mole. Also ridiculous, because most mole owners also own a prospector, just because they either upgraded from a prospector to a mole if they don't own multiple ships. But most people that own multiple ships in the game, if they own a mole, I myself have a mole for whenever we do group stuff in the org that I'm with. And then I have a prospector for whenever I just want to do quick out and about runs, because it's a pain in the butt to go through and solo a mole. It can be done, absolutely, but it's more of a tedious situation. And generally, the materials that I'm going out to mine, I need quick, fast, and in a hurry for things like Quantanium and stuff like that. The only thing right now, the only thing that's actually worth mining is Quantanium, truly. But then you have to go through and make sure you get things taken care of quick, get them all separated and split out, and then, like, on the quick, go through and have 2 or 3 people going through and pulling everything back in for the Quantanium and get it, enough of it to go through and make it to where it's worthwhile for the trip. If you can go through and fill up 60 or 70 SCU of Quantanium and the 96 SCU that's available, I believe it's 96 SCU that's available on the ship, and get back to a station to go through and refine it, great. But most mole owners either have owned a prospector or own a prospector and a mole. And my side of it is I don't see any crazy, like, oh my god, no, they're totally ruining my prospector. I go through and have a different mindset and experience whenever I go out with my prospector. Sorry, just kind of ranting on there. The mole should have its jump speed and flying speed reduced by half, if not more, hopefully more. It's those 3 big special computerized lasers that CIG gave the mole, which make the mole heavy and slow. Really? That's just a dumb sentiment. The mole should have its jump speed and flying speed reduced by half, if not more. It's a much larger ship that's able to go through and have much larger engines on it, and a much larger Quantanium fuel tank and hydrogen fuel tank. The logic there is just unsound. This is just like spite for spite's sake, honestly, it feels like. The mole should have its scanning power reduced by half or more. Hopefully more. Again with the hopefully. I don't understand the hopefully more. The mole's computer power is used on those 3 big specialized computerized lasers that CIG gave the mole, which leave very little computing power left for scanning. Pretty sure those lasers run off like a Raspberry Pi. I'm just saying, putting that out there. Again, it just seems like it's all in here for spite. The mole should not be able to mine a rock smaller than 7,000 mass. The mole owners will be pleased to know that their 3 big special computerized lasers the CIG gave them are far too powerful and cannot mine 7K mass or smaller rocks. Mining a rock 7K mass or smaller will result in a chain reaction that blows the rock up and the mole up. What happens whenever you mine a rock? You get that big rock that's, you know, if you want to go through and look at bigger than the 7K, let's say you pull a 10K rock and you fire your lasers at it and you split it. Those become rocks with smaller mass than 7K. That's what happens. I'm not a doctor here, but in order to get it to a smaller spot so you can go through and break it up and refine it, you're breaking it into smaller rocks. So your logic is not the brightest right there. The whole process, unless you're literally just going through and like taking the mole out and it's just, you know, got the reclaimer jaws on there and it just goes through and takes the rock in and then it does all the processing inside. That's a whole different story. But you have to break the rock down, so that's dumb. I'm not even. Yeah, that's just dumb on that side. The punishment nerf for the mole should be welcomed with open arms by the mole community. After all, the mole owners fully supported the punishment nerf on the prospector, so the mole community should fully embrace their punishment nerf. I don't know how much this actually. Did the punishment? Did the mole community, like, one, is there a mole community? Am I not aware of this community of mole owners? Because I should be in there, and being that I wasn't, I'm assuming that there has to be some sort of community of mole miners. But I'm sure they weren't like, yes, finally, those damn prospectors, they're getting what they deserve for trying to imitate being a mole. They're not moles. I don't think anybody cared about that in the mole community. I don't think they were rejoicing, and also we didn't get a say in it. Not sure if Max Jurgens is aware, but none of us in the community have that kind of power to go through and be like, Chris Roberts, why do you play these games and toy with our emotions? You know the prospectors are mere shadows of what the moles are supposed to be. Nerf them, and we will all rejoice and accept it with open arms inside the mole community. That didn't happen, so I don't know. So just the post itself, I thought was honestly just a big troll, because especially with the kind of like reiteration time after time of like, it's those 3 big special computerized lasers, and then those 3 big special computerized lasers that CIG gave, like, it's the computing power. Like, I thought it was a troll. Going down further though, some of the responses back, are hilarious, right? So the face bomb, no, nothing, nothing, nothing. Get a grip, dude. Solo prospector. Mining is unchanged. No, but team play for the prospector was nerfed out of the game, and in-game mining content was taken away. What? I really want to know what the post has been edited by moderation, and the user has been PM'd. I want to know what. There had to be a whole lot of cursing or something like that in it. I want to know what was PM'd, what was edited. You don't even know if it's a nerf because it is a big part of a bouquet of changes. You know, da 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 da. And there are some really good points that people bring up in here, right? A group of prospectors can do everything. The same number of players on Mole can, but better. Now they're making it to where, you know, mining clusters, smoke out small rocks. You know, people make good points on there. Your anger about this seems way out of proportion to its importance, or you're trolling. Which I agree. I don't think that it's that big of a deal. Again, I have a prospector. I love flying around on my prospector. I also have a mole. The only time I really go out in the mole is whenever I have a group of friends together. More often than not, I just go out in the prospector. And even I'm like, okay, I can understand if I come across a freaking like 15K rock or something like that, that with my one prospector, I'm not going to be able to go through and break it. And generally, I don't join with other groups of people that I don't know outside of my org in prospectors. So I like maybe that's just me. Like I'm more of a, if I want to run solo, I run solo. CIG just destroyed the gameplay for prospector owners, and I bought the prospector with real life money. So yes, I am pissed off that CIG and mole owners and the mole owners, like this part right here, and the mole owners pushed the prospector owners out of the game and destroyed the value of the ships we bought. Okay, two things. One, and the mole owners. Like there was a mole owners society, an MOS. The MOS got together and was like, how can we screw over prospector owners, even though most of us own prospectors? Really? And I'm assuming Max Jurgens is a guy. Just my assumption. He's like, I bought the prospector with real life money, which means that you can go through and use that to upgrade if you wanted to. You can go through and change it to a different ship if you don't want to do mining altogether because it's ruined the game for you. Got you. There's other options, but to go through and be like, it ruined it for me. CIG and the mole owners pushed the prospector owners out of the game. Out of the game. No. There's been changes that's been needing to go in between the prospectors and the moles for the longest time. I'm happy that they are actually doing something different with it. I would like to see them go through and do things to where the size 2 lasers on the mole actually have something that makes it size 2 laser worthwhile, I guess. Let's read on. Like Bio Automaton said, the mole has been pretty much useless up to now. I agree. Multiple prospectors are always better because they cover more ground and don't waste a whole player on just piloting. Agreed. The goal is to ensure both prospector and mole owners have competitive gameplay, not just prospectors as it is now. And that's another really good point that he brings up in the sense that they're able to cover more ground. So anytime that we go through and do anything within the org, where multiples of us, typically whenever we do it, we go through and have 2 or 3 prospectors, and then a mole go out. And we all go our separate ways, and whoever finds the biggest Quantanium rock with the highest percentage, we warp to that person, help break it down, go through and get it all taken care of. Generally go through and pull it back in the mole, which is usually piloted by myself. I fly it back, we go through and get it set up for refining, but we all break it down and do everything and then haul it back in the mole as much as possible for the Quantanium, get it refining, and which is usually like the 18 or 20 hour process or whatever to go through and refine that much. Go back out, and while I'm going back, they go off and they search for different stuff. So even if you go through and play it in a sense to where you're not using multiple prospectors and a mole, having multiple small scout ships is still a great way of going through and doing it. And being able to go through and make sure that, you know, it's all taken back and all refined, and the person that's going through and doing the refining, generally the way we run it is, you know, it's my org, quote unquote. So I go through that, and then I know who was out there, so I can go through, and I just split it up evenly between all that were out there whenever we go through and get the refining done. Because generally, there's not very. I have a pretty small org, so there's not very many of us that are out there, so I know who's out there doing it. But doing that side of it, it makes sense. Like, and his point is absolutely correct. In that same sense too, like going out there with a mole and multiple scout ships that maybe not even prospectors, just scout ships in general, makes sense as well, and makes it to where, you know, these things can be done. But also that whole mindset of it is that the prospector is a solo ship, and honestly made more for solo gameplay. Can it be played, and can multiple people out and prospectors go in a group? Absolutely. But the only time that it actually makes sense for prospectors to go through and hit the same rock is if it's Quantanium, and on the big break, the first break. After that, prospectors should be able to go through and handle things individually on their own. But that's anyways. So this is the response from that person, Guidis. Yeah. The mole is useless because mole pilots refuse to multi-crew their ship. Okay, one, not true. That's a huge assumption, you know, basing out there. And now CIG is punishing prospector owners so that mole owners will crew their ships. Why would prospector owners be punished? Because mole pilots won't use their ship like CIG wants them to? That question didn't make sense, but the sentiment stands. Mole's used because mole pilots refuse to multi-crew their ships. I have been in so many servers to where if I don't want to go through and pull a mole out, somebody's like, hey, I got a mole. Anybody want to do multi-crew mining? You know, I'll go through and split it or pay you, you know, just for the hours that are done. And yeah, I joined their crew. And I rarely see servers that I hop onto. And granted, most people aren't doing mining, especially lately. They're going through and doing, you know, bounty hunting, or honestly just PvPs, you know, just doing different stuff, bunker missions. But whenever people are doing mining, or they're doing like cargo hauling or something like that, you know, they will call out and say, hey, I'm doing this. Anybody want to hop on? Anybody want to join? And yeah, there's a few people that go through and do that. Let's see what Gib, I'm pretty sure that's Gib, responded with. One player in Prospector is mostly better than one player in a mole. Absolutely agree. You can make an argument for the mole solo, though. I'll give you that. It's just kind of a pain in the ass. 2 players and two prospectors is better than 2 players in a mole. I would generally agree with that as well. 3 players and 3 prospectors is generally better than 3 players in a mole. At this point in time, as the game stands right now, yes, I would agree with that as well. 4 players, same thing. No amount of crew make the mole better. More crew actually make it worse, because the greatest advantage of the mole solo is more cargo capacity and beam power in the hands of a single player, with the inconvenience of seat transfer. Yeah, I agree with that. You're ranting without actually understanding the problem. There's a lot of replies to that one. I won't go into that one. But I can agree with most of that. As it stands right now, one player and a prospector is mostly better than a mole, except for, as this person brought out, the cargo capacity and the beam power. Like, you do have a bit more that you can do on there. Although I would say the beam power it's not as big of a notice from what I can see a lot of times. But I digress. Like, it's you can get a little bit closer, you can get a little more power into it, but I would say that it should honestly feel like more. CIG is not destroying the prospector. A bunch of hyperbole here. You can mine with the prospector just fine as you can now. Yeah. This is a lot, but it looks like it makes kind of a good point. With no context, you just sound incredibly salty. I agree. I'm assuming some mole fanboy was boasting, probably. And is the prospector even getting nerfed solo? I thought it was just the co-op prospector mining would be harder. And that's how I understood it too, because honestly, if you're going through and with the prospector, I always took it as people were just kind of go through and complaining that with their prospector, they couldn't do everything they wanted to in the prospector, and some stuff you have to do in a mole. That's kind of how I took it as well. But the prospector, it wouldn't make sense for a prospector to go through and be like, hey, that's a 15K rock. Shoot, dang, I'm going to go through and fire it with my size 1, mining laser and break it apart. That doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, so sorry. Unless CIG significantly increases the engagement of the fracturing minigame, it's creating problems, then offering a multi-crew solution. The gameplay was, yeah, okay. So, what else does Homeboy say? There he is. The mole will only benefit with a multi-crew. You won't be able to crack these mega rocks as a solo mole player, and I believe that's kind of how it's looking at, because you're going to be needing to go through and reduce the instability and provide the power. Prospector owner will not be able to group play anymore once CIG implements the punishment nerf. Prospector owners are being punished because mole owners refuse to multi-crew a broken mole. The best CIG could do is a punishment nerf for the prospector owners. And he goes on, take a breath, wait for changes. And that's the thing, we're still in alpha. All these changes, I welcome changes to anything on the gameplay, because I've done the gameplay loop in both the prospector and the mole. Like, at the end of the day, I'm interested to see what happens and to see where it goes, because it's not the final say-so. They're not going to be like, that's it, mining's perfect now, and we're not going to make any changes until release. Like, that's not how it's going to work. They still have to go through and put in there things like refining with the expanse, and how that's going to go through and incorporate the things with the saddlebags and everything like that coming off. There's so much stuff that's going in there. I don't know. This looks like this. So this Valdrin person actually had a response that Max replied to. Let's see what he says. And I think this will be the last one. I think I'm going to wrap this one up with this one. Nerf, or whatever people want to call it, shouldn't matter. Everything else, everything is still in alpha. Okay, just kind of like what I said. So we should accept that these things are not written in stone. Look at how often the flight model has been redone. Perfect example. That's a perfect analogy. They didn't like it, so by all means, it's alpha, so they changed it. When we do manual loading by cargo by hand, tractor beam technically is it's one more step. Just job a player will have to do for more cargo. Let's see. The mole, like you said, needed something to make sense for people to use it. CIG has questioned lots of times why not more ships. Players consistently joked about crewing is pointless. It's a legitimate problem, and they have spun a few ideas about it before with no success. Look at how turrets got massively updated with ammo counts to be more of a threat than what they were before. A gunner is more dangerous than a pilot now. Nerf to pilots? Nah, it was CIG compensating for crew by making the second guy in something like a Hurricane worth more than the two players in separate ships. I absolutely agree with that. You're 100% correct on this. I just wanted to state that we are looking for something the CIG is trying to dial in to incentivize ships, balance, and other features. I wouldn't say that Max is 100% correct on his whole post of everything on there. I will say that there are points. Yeah, they are doing some bit of a nerf, but also there is a point of it that makes sense to go through and make it to where gameplay is more adventurous or gives you something to work towards. You don't go through being like, I got a prospector, that's all I need ever in my whole life. No, you're going to want to go through and add different things. Once again, prospector owners should not be punished out of the game because mole pilots refuse to crew their ships. And it's not even that. Even with a mole pilot crewing their ships, there still needs to be changes that are done with that as well, right? It needs to be, not that there needs to be more of an incentive. It just needs to be further clarified. I'm sorry if you guys can hear my kitty outside. What a crybaby. It needs to be clarified more on and like the roles need to be defined more, both as a prospector, a solo ship, and the mole, on what needs to be done with the mole to go through and refine the roles. Having a dedicated pilot is always beneficial, and having at least two people on the lasers is beneficial, right? That's how it is. Whenever we go out and we do our multi-crew and the mole, it's usually me and at least one other person, most of the times two people, right? So it'll be me and Panda and Hua. They go out. If we can get Salty with it as well, great. Then we have three people mining the lasers. But most of the times, even whenever we do that, we have one of them out in a scout ship to go through and see if we can split apart and find stuff, because the moles really slow and cumbersome to go through and move. Having a small scout ship and then meeting up on that person out there in the air and halo belt and saying, cool, everybody hop on your lasers, good to go. To me, that's a fun experience. Granted, a lot of people don't do that, but I also don't think that the Mole Owners Association, the MOA, got together and was like, CIG, we need to punish the prospector owners, and in particular Max Jurgens, because he bought a ship with real money and now we want to go through and cut them out of the game. I just don't see it. But that's all I got on that one, guys. I wanted to touch base on this. I think that it's an interesting. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with it and how well it will turn out altogether. I do have high hopes for it. I hope that it makes it to where there are different things that you can do in the prospector that you can't do with the mole, and that there are things that you can do in the mole that you can't do with the prospector, and that it still makes it to where it's fun and worthwhile. But I don't think they need to go through and, out of spite, do some sort of nerf to the mole. I'm sure there are going to be things that are going to be nerfed in the functionality of the mole just with this going through, because I'm sure they don't want to be like, oh, you got a mole? Cool. Your one laser is good enough to go through and crack this 15K rock. You're going to have to work together with all this stuff. So that's going to wrap it up for me, though. I did want to touch base on this and see how it went. Click over here to go through and check out The Racer, which is a song on the YouTubes and for the racing scene, an original song written by me. Yep. Until next time, this is the Nerdy Gentleman reminding you to fly happy, and I'll see you all later. Bye, guys.
Gentlemen.